I mean, that's almost exactly what I thought, and that's why I was saying that the finding that preview for that show was like a train wreck, and I was total clickbaited. Like, they got me because I went and watched as many of the previews as I could, because I was like, what idiot would the guy would be like, yeah, I think this is a great idea, and not only for your example, but like for the like, I don't know, like having one of the best parts about marriage is that you can reach a point where you have so much trust that you don't need to have jealousy. And removing jealousy from your life removes an entire huge block of adolescent chaos in your life, where you're thinking about what somebody else is thinking about you and how you can reciprocate, and should you have power dynamics, and like, when you get married, if you get married to the right person, that stuff all goes away. You have new problems, but you're transcended to a different level. So when this preview was about this guy, like, oh, we're about to get married and we're going to do this to like see how it can benefit our relationship, I was like, you idiot. You're giving up the very best thing that you have for what? Like, why get married at all?
Yeah, I know, but I think a lot of this stuff it's where you tend to find where people who are okay, right, so we went back in a generation, people are very conservative. Now, they couldn't explain, and this is sort of what happened me ever being the edgy internet atheist or whatever in a teenager, because conservative people cannot defend their positions. They don't know why they believe. It's just always worked. These positions have always worked, and that's why I'm doing them. And they can't explain why. They don't know what's about them.
Yeah, tradition is the answers to questions that we've even forgotten the questions, right?
Yes.
Like, we don't know why they work. We just do this tradition, and by the way, then our lives succeed.
Yeah. You the groups that adopt these beliefs and practices survive, and the groups that don't survive. And so so it is. The book is. So the next book is because it's a lot about evolutionary psychology, because it's. I think you've within the certain groups, it's an unpopular idea, but these are the same sort of people who would have been arguing against creationists, arguing against religious people, and claiming that evolution's true. But then once it comes to psychology, evolution isn't true. No, but psychology, obviously it evolved. Like, clearly it evolved. Where else did it come from? And so a large portion of, if we could call it a depression, you take even the obesity epidemic. The obesity epidemic can only be understood from looking at it as from the perspective of evolution. It's like, oh, we have evolved to desire sugar, to like sugar, and now we're completely, this thing that's very rare, that we very little access to, and now we're completely surrounded with it. We are evolved to live in areas with live in periods of scarcity where food's going to run out, so when it's abundant, you take advantage of that. And now we're in the time of plenty, and it's backfiring. America's 2 generations away from being unable to defend itself because the population will be too fat. So that can only be understood. And so, like, how many more other, everything from depression to anxiety to, whatever can only be understood if you look at it from the perspective of evolution. All right, well, these traits. So depression exists for a reason. It's not a bad thing. It's not something it's there to tell you. It's, again, like, these are things that will obviously be more complicated. And there's obviously, some people who are going to have actual issues with brain chemistry. It's thrown around too much, but this is something that's there for a reason.
Yeah, I think that goes along. Anxiety is one of those things that I talk about. Anxiety is your brain saying something is really wrong and you need to fix it. And when you go around saying we should fix the symptoms, you shouldn't be anxious, as opposed to saying, hey, your psyche is telling you that you're doing something wrong and you need to address it. And by the way, the reason that it takes your psyche is because you don't want to face it. Mm-hmm. And so I think you're exactly right. Like, you really don't know And you've got to have an open society where you don't say, hey, the traditions that we had in the past, we always have to adhere to. You have to have people pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
But be careful of being the person that opens that door. And I think this relates to you in your book. Like in the case of you saying, I'm going to open the door to these drugs, like you really did take a chance there, because you could have been that guy that was on the hostel stairs injecting heroin into his in between his toes.
Yeah, there's a Dr. Carl. I've mentioned this to you before we started recording, but I can't remember his name. I think it's Dr. Carl Hart. But he is a drug expert. He's written several books on the topic. But he has talked out how he's a recreational drug user. He's a recreational heroin user. So, and this is actually a lot more common within the medical field. So the argument that they have is that, you know, these are professional people. They're, you know, they're not short of money. They have access to, they know how to use a needle. They have access to high quality narcotics, so they're not getting rubbish. They do it occasionally. They do it occasionally with a group of other people who they trust and who they work with, and who also can use needles and have access to high quality narcotics. And it's safe in that scenario. It's safe until it isn't. And this is sort of the issue. It's none of it's that good. It is because everything's at the end of the day is risk and reward. And is that risk, even as small as you think it is, worth it for the, you know, the potential fallout? So and again, he's a tenured professor. He doesn't really have any worries. Doesn't really have, you know, it's a, you know, he's a very safe job and a very, you know, I'd say easy. I don't know exactly what he does, but from my experience of tenured people, it doesn't tend to be too strenuous. So maybe he has a lifestyle where he can get away with recreational heroin use, and it's. But your other issue is, I normally what they talk about is what was called him again? What's Christopher Hitchens' brother called again? Forgot his
Peter
name.
Hitchens.
Peter Hitchens wrote, and again, it's where my position has changed so much, because when I read his book, The War That Never Was, I laughed the whole way through it. I thought, what a silly book. And now reading over it again, I'm like, actually, he's making a lot of fair points. Because he's talking about like these upper middle class, secure mortgage paid off or paying off their mortgage, educated people talking about their drug use. You know, it should be legalized because I have a joint at the weekend, blah, blah, blah. You know, and it's all fair and well. But the reality is the majority of drugs are being taken by poor people. The majority of the drugs are being taken by people who are not in secure positions. They're being taken by people who probably don't need to be spending that money there, who probably is really negative to their overall lifestyle. So you have this, this group of, you've used the terminology to describe the away people. What do they call again? The type of person who goes away.
Oh, the anywhere people.
Anywhere people. So you have these anywhere people who are like, who are, we need to, these drugs are fine for me, so it should be fine for everybody. So all the laws and all the legislation, all the rules, it should be built to suit me. Don't think about it. And again, the idea that there's other people with different experiences, different mindsets, different values, different tolerances, that these people are somehow different than them that couldn't be right. So the legislation needs to fit me and my, group of friends. And so there is that danger. And I have to appreciate, while I'm not educated by any means, I am in a sort of a privileged position where I'm, secure and I'm in a decent job, and I don't have too many pressures or struggles. And my reasons for doing these things is maybe different than another person's reason for doing them. So, and I am throughout the book very cautious, and even when I have those like good experience, I think in nearly every chapter I'm like, yeah, but remember that bad thing that happened. So, I don't want to. And that only came later on in the book, because when I first wrote the book, it was that sort of like saying, like, now consider sort of cringy, just the war on drugs is really dumb position. But
Thanks for checking out this podcast short. If you like this interview, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button and hit that bell so you always get notified about this podcast. And if you're really interested in conversations like this, you may want to consider joining the Articulate Ventures Network. To find out more, go to network.articulate.ventures.